All right, cyber traders, welcome on back here to close things out for the week, Friday, April 30th. I know Fausto brought up the end of the pay period. I told you he would going into yesterday afternoon's meeting. Great to see all of us live, though. Grant, Leda, all of our students, Taz included, live inside the cyber group room, and for all of us on social media, Facebook Live and YouTube, one more time for the week. Welcome on back. So let's talk about Twitter. Twitter.com, not necessarily really what's on Twitter, but really the stock itself, the news that came out, the earnings. I'll get the full report out in just a moment, but you don't really need to know the full report in order to know what happened to the stock after 9:30. So we ended up seeing this make a big drop off leading into the open from after hours yesterday. The full fancy headline looks like the EPS may not compare to its estimate. Sales beat on the quarter, but nonetheless, they ended up having a steep drop off going into this morning. Hey, for a $56 stock, $57 stock, I'm never really as one to trade a more expensive stock when I could trade more shares of a cheaper one. Now, I'm not a penny stock guy. I'm not scalping like those, but hey, if I could trade an $8, $10 VXRT, which Gene just picked up 11 cents on right now live, I'd rather trade 2,000 shares. But that's just my cup of tea. Nonetheless, Twitter, this is a stock that we're pretty familiar with, myself in particular, across the years. I mean, it fell out of our price range, but for this morning off the news, I wanted to give it a shot. I said, we'll follow the money on this trade. We ended up seeing a lot of selling interest coming in off 57 going into the market open. Was off pre-market levels here, at least these big spikes of volume off the breakdown off 57, but even here the pop and then drop, the false breakout. So going into the open, the question is, what if history repeats itself? What if after the market opens, we see more selling coming in off 57? So 57, I learned, was not just the only level to watch on this trade. I looked back on my level 4, my book map. It was actually the price of 57.15. You can see the high of the day, 57.63. It spiked up a lot higher. But once we ended up seeing more sell-off coming in, not just from 57, but 57.15, that specific price, I ended up shorting. And that was more so going into the mid-morning here as it made its rounded top. I caught the short right from there, actually a few cents higher. 57.19 was my price. I ended up doing it on 400 shares, ended up dropping it down beautifully. I didn't, get out at 56.34, so to say right there. That's the opening bell print price, but ended up doing pretty well off the drop and went down lower going into the early afternoon. So I was short on this trade from 56.30 just recently here and now, actually. I mentioned it for all of us here live. I said right before we started this meeting, I said I'm long on Twitter from 55.91. Why? Well, I was short from 56 just a moment ago, but it's what I tell you folks every single day here in the trading room, pretty much every day here on social media too, just for free. If it's not going to break any lower, there's only one other way it's going to move, right? So with that, if 56 was such a big level, such a powerful support level, which it was, when I went short from 56, I expected a really big move down from that price. I didn't get it. So I ended up actually closing the short. I ended up seeing this kind of shake around, and I took a pretty good entry. I got to say from 55.91. I saw this break under and over 55.90. And I'll tell you, for right now, just because I want to focus just on this meeting, on the watch list going into the close, I'm going to clock out right now. I hope I got out at 23. 22 that got me filled at. I'll take it. Nonetheless, that was on half-size position. That was actually 500 shares in total. Nonetheless, though, hey, for the afternoon, I'm shaking back down now there. We'll put this on our watch list. We love trading Twitter when it's moving off of news or off of earnings, every quarter. But yeah, for right now, we'll see if this ends up moving back up higher towards the opening bell print line off that 56.34. And if it doesn't, then I would assume for it to shake much sooner back down, at least 256. If it ends up going up to this line here on my chart, we're not out of the doghouse on the short. This might false break over this line and then slam right back down. If that happens, I might be taking my short from there. So yeah, for right now, I'm out of the long, but for the meantime, yeah, we'll put this on our watch list, seeing where this will go either way. It's been a lot of talking today, actually, for a Friday. My day's been stacked with coaching right before I started this meeting. I apologize for the quick water break, but let's go right from top to bottom. We'll kind of make things efficient. I don't have class going into this afternoon. I do have a coaching session, but I can make use of my time here. Let's just go right from the beginning here. RHE, our top percent gainer. That's a pretty decent exit. But nonetheless, RHE squeezing up. Nice move up here off the breakout, roughly from 750-ish, 775 you might want to go with there. You can see it held support off of 8 and pushed back up, getting really choppy right now. The order book is pretty, spaced out, fluctuating spread at points. Right now it's like a couple cents, but it's a little indecisive with its move here heading into the afternoon. I'll put this on the side. Maybe I'll come back to this at the very end. And I'll tell you right now, I mean, hey, I always say for all of us in social media, feel free to join us live in our trading room every day. But I ended up failing on bringing up the Bitcoin chart yesterday. I was kind of in my own zone, my tangent there, going from top to bottom here. So before I sign off today, I definitely want to bring up the Bitcoin chart, just showing you, what could be ahead going into the weekend when we're not on here live. But we'll keep it going here for right now. BTX just pretty choppy right now. I mean, moving sideways, but even here, just like super flat. Holding over 51 even, or even 50 you can go with. But if it's not going to break higher, same rules apply with this as it was on Twitter. So, for as big of a move as this made again, I mean, we saw the stock back from Wednesday this week explode up. Then yesterday it was down like 22%. Today, right back up it goes. We have no idea where the stock's going long-term, folks. We're just keeping track of this day to day. It's just crazy to see this make another, big up move today to even break higher from Wednesday's high. But now at this point, look at where it is now. So I wouldn't expect this to make another big move up by the end of the day today. And if it's not going to move up higher, then I think it's just going to keep dropping off more from here. So in terms of what's ahead, I just think it's just going to dump off much more over time. But hey, I've been wrong with that so far the last few days from this week. MOTS, MOTS here. We ended up seeing this make a nice move off the pop off like 8 o'clock, I think even that was. The resistance to watch on this trade, it was at 163. It was a really clear level from pre-market, a big buying level. If it wasn't, shown at 63 on the nose here, maybe it was 65 on the chart, but it was 63 in terms of the volume spike. And with that, it ended up holding under that price level after the market opened by a penny. The high of the day was 162. So I was watching this ready for a move up on it. I was like chomping at the bit to wait for that break. And even if it false broke, to see it break higher later on after, just held flat under and dropped off. So yeah. Cryolife. Is it like a cryotherapy, whatever we call it? Let me see. Just going to take a look at the ticker on Benzinga right now just to see what this company is. I mean, just never seen this stock trade before. Looks like they're up off of Q1 EPS and sales results. That was the news from yesterday afternoon. Interesting. I mean, hey, it's at the highs. The spread is gonna fluctuate. The order book's a little scarce. And it looks like it's engaged in the manufacturing, processing, and distribution of medical devices and implantable human tissues, or it's small font here, human tissues used in cardiac and vascular surgical procedures. All right, I mean, interesting, but it's at the highs. The chart looks pretty interesting too, nonetheless, outside of what the company does. But yeah, for right now, it's a Friday, the end of the week, and the pay period, as Fausto said from earlier. So see what else is out there. If it ends up making a huge pop and you folks see it out there, then call it out to me. I'll give it a second look, I guess, if that's the case. But all right, so we got one of our members on YouTube just commenting on VXRT. Of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't go over VXRT here. It's still on the gainer side, but I'd still go over it anyway. Ended up making a huge pop after the market opened. A stock that we've been watching, of course. I like to say this a lot just because we have new members joining us on social media day to day. But we've been following this stock since the pandemic last year. One of those vaccine stocks that was coming out with news frequent with, INO, Sorrento, all those different other trades that we were catching. So it's one that we've been following on and off, more recently off than on. And then all of a sudden this week ended up making a big pop. And since we've been following it. So, once again today, another big move after the market opened. It re-broke above a major resistance there off of 10. Ended up making a huge move from that 10 level later on going into the late morning, early afternoon, full dollar move. In fact, actually, I'm kind of pissed off this move's happening right now, if we're being honest with each other. I was focused on Twitter so long going into this afternoon meeting. I took my eyes off this trade for like the slightest bit. I knew this move was going to happen at some point, and if it wasn't off of 11 exactly, holding flat, I thought it was going to false break and then pull back. So I don't think I would have entered this trade, considering it just didn't make that exact move. But and this trend line's not perfect. But you could see outside the false breaks here, it held, came back down, moved up, held, came back down, moved up. It broke above the trend line. I saw that with my own eyes, and I was waiting for this to make the pop over 11. I was going to set a stop limit order under 11 to get filled short. Would have been nice, right? Would have been beautiful. But nonetheless, though, I mean, hey, I hope somebody ended up doing that either way, ended up catching it off the 11 as a short going into the afternoon. But for right now, VXRT still remains very tradable in my eyes. On the way up, on the way down. I know it was hard to borrow back. I think it was like Wednesday or maybe Tuesday this week. One of those days this week. Like a bunch of these were hard to borrow. Now they're not from TradeStation, thankfully. So, this was a great trade today on the way up. Nice shake on the way down as a short. See what else we got here. Looking pretty good so far, at least just between Twitter and the VXRT. And I got to say, this AHT is not surprising at this point for me to see this at the highs. It was getting popped up on my Benzinga Pro frequently going into the afternoon. So ended up making a bit of a dip down to like 270 under and over. If anyone ended up catching that, that looks like probably the best entry of them all going into the afternoon. But easy to say that in hindsight. Ended up making the bounce from there. Look to see this break higher going into the next 60 minutes. So yeah, AHT looking pretty good. All right. EDR. Oh, Endeavor. Okay. Yep. Okay. So I'm a big UFC fan, combat sports, mixed martial arts, like dating back like 15 years ago. Not since 1993 when they started, but long enough. I knew that they went public, and I didn't take the time to look up the ticker even. I mean, on the reports, the articles I was reading, they just didn't list it. I was like, all right, I'll find it at some point. They ended up going public like 4 months ago, 6 months ago, or they were set to, and then they pulled the plug on the whole thing. I was pretty upset about that. I remember looking on Benzinga Pro one day, seeing the Endeavor IPO listed. This is like, half a year back, and I think the pandemic ended up making them push it back. It was pretty unfortunate, but yeah, ended up making a nice pop today. Endeavor is the main company, Endeavor Group. They own like so much out there in terms of entertainment companies, subsidiaries, businesses out there. The UFC is one of them, and the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship, combat sport, and they are worth at this point, I mean, more than 4.2 billion, which is what Endeavor bought them for. I mean, they're well more worth than that now. So, a very important company to look for going forward. Now, as far as a day trade, it's interesting because it's moving up, at the highs right now off the IPO, breaking higher at least from yesterday, and on 7.5 million shares roughly. Just a little bit of a spread, blank order book. That part skis me out. Like, that doesn't make me too interested in using it as a day trade. If you want to focus on it as a swing trade, then go ahead. I mean, as a swing trade, I'd look for a pullback, then a move up higher. But nonetheless, keep this on your radar. EDR, the ticker, Endeavor. I was like, what the hell is this EDR? And then I see like Endeavor. I'm like, oh, yep. I remember. All right. TEDU is a pop in pre-market. I don't know what happened here. Looks like a buyout to me. And I didn't see the news on that, at least from earlier. I don't care to really check now. Mark from earlier, not the student, but the trade remark holdings ended up making a nice sneaky move after the market opened. Not too sneaky for us to call it out, though. I know Fausto ended up calling this one out pretty early on as it broke out initially off 220. Ended up catching this move all the way up towards just about 250 and above on a false break from there. But yeah, I mean, beautiful run up. It is shortable. So what goes up does or can crap out the other way. And I guess that could have made a good short too. Rail was easy to borrow back, I think, earlier in the week. Now it's not, but ended up making a beautiful move once again on the way up this morning and going throughout the entire day or most of. And, at this point now, since it's not at the highs, I wouldn't expect for a sudden second move. I feel like it's kind of just squeeze around a bit, not really make as indecisive of a run right now. All right, let's jump to Mara. I see it on the gainer side here still. I don't know if myself. There we go, number 37. All right, so what happened? What was it? Just like 2 days ago, we were following Bitcoin. I showed the chart, and then we talked about Mara. I got to go back a bit more. Damn. All right, TradeStation, you're holding me back here. So what happened on Mara here from the afternoon meeting, 2:30 Eastern time, just back on Wednesday, because I really hold myself to this, right? These Bitcoin blockchain related stocks, they never end up making the second big move up higher. Now, thankfully, this did make a move up. It did move up higher into the close, but when we see a stock at the highs, like at this time of the day, we expect a much more volatile run up. So, I guess I'm being a little picky there since it did make the move up, but going into the afternoon today, it kind of pulled back a bit. I guess it is shortable, but for right now, I mean, it just remains like a good sideless stock, Mara, that is. Now, let me get the Bitcoin chart up at least. Felt pretty bad I didn't get that up yesterday. I said I was. All right, so let's talk about yesterday and then what happened going into this morning, because from yesterday afternoon, it was pretty much a matter of it just dipping back a bit further. And I said this back a few days ago when it was moving up and spiking up here. I was like, we're not out of the doghouse yet. Like, by no means. This is going to still pull back and shake around. I thought this pop did signify the fact that this could be the bottom. But otherwise, though, it's going to shake around a bit. Now, going into this morning, we ended up seeing Bitcoin make another big move up, which, to me, I think is a good sign to see what's ahead. Not to say over this weekend, don't hold me to that, but going into the next week, I think, should this hold here roughly off these EMA lines, and I think, if anything, it's going to hold roughly over the 500 at this point. I think the rest are going to catch up with it as it accelerates up higher. But I think that this is a good starting point to see a second move up going into the next few weeks, next few months ahead. So I look forward to it. We'll see. But, nonetheless, I mean, even if this does pull back down a bit more, look for the 500 EMA here on the hourly chart to hold. As I've been analyzing Bitcoin since the last 4 to 6 months, I forgot when I exactly started showing this during the meetings, but I've particularly been using a 1-hour chart and then also on a longer scale. I mean, I do use, of course, a daily and a weekly. I have to. But in these meetings, I've been using an hourly and then otherwise a 6-hour graph to kind of show what's been happening on a longer scale. All right. All right, cool. There we go. So there we go. We'll see what happens going into Bitcoin across the weekend and into Monday. For Mara, good sideless stock, I guess. Not really too much to write home about for the afternoon, though. Wow, look at Twitter right now, really quick. Twitter right back down to that 56. It's going to break below that and 55.99 here. Not to say right now, but in the next few minutes on another rebreak, I think that could be our big move lower. Not a bad long at the time. I thought it could have even pushed up even more up to this line. Didn't get it. All right. What else do we got here, folks? Let me know if there's anything else that you see. Up, down, left, right, more than 5%. I'll take a look at Benzinga Pro at the same time. Gotta slow it down myself. RJF calling out OCGN, which I know that Ken was talking about just earlier. OCGN would like to break 12. I was talking about that earlier, talking about the 1180. So that was off the dump off that you commented on earlier, Ken. And yeah, at the time, and really it was more here when I was building this pennant, I was calling out for this to even test 1180. I was looking for the bounce from that price. And that could have, at the same time, signaled a potential short should that have happened. Unfortunately, that did not. It ended up making a higher low even here. It spiked up right away and then came back down, held a higher low, and moving back up. Hey, if I put VXRT on our watch list, and I know that's a lot stronger in its move up right now, but, OCGN is just as volatile. So I feel like that could be, just as good of a play even going into a Friday. Compare that to Clove. Unfortunately, Clove on the other side of things, this is like really slow. Even if it moves up a little bit, just not moving nearly as well up or down fast enough for my liking at this point. Twitter, VXRT, OCGN, those are more worth the limited time that we have left. All right, speaking of limited time for all of us on social media, I think that just about ends our time right now. If there's anything else that I see, though, let me see from Benzinga Pro. Got Canon at the low of the day. I don't know what happened there. I think they had a direct offering or common stock offering yesterday. It's at the lows, not down more than 5%, but you know what? I don't mind it. I mean, hey, it's moving, it's active, not trading really a whole amount volume right now. I mean, it just made a big spike, but then ended up kind of dying off a bit. It's at the lows right now, and order on the bid at 12.75. I'll slip it on there. RHE was the only other one I kind of put on the side list, so to say. And, it's up big still. It's near the highs, closer to the highs than the lows. I'm not a big fan of the order book. I think I'm going to be focused more on the others first. But for anyone else that finds interested in this trade, then, I don't wrong you for that. But just the order book is like so indecisive. It looks like a fluctuating spread, not really any big orders on the bid or the ask to identify support or resistance with. You might say 9, but it's chopping through 9 up and down over the last like 30 minutes on the chart. So I'll add this to the list at the bottom for anyone interested in following this one. But myself, I'll be back on twitter.com going into the close. All right. For all of us on social media, as always, well, first, might I say, enjoy the weekend. I hope that it's nice and lovely where you are. It's going to be nice here in Long Island, I think. Maybe a little cloudy, but otherwise nice and like 65, 70, decent weather. So it'll be nice to step away from the computer and away from the stock market for the next few days. All right. So I look forward to it. I hope that you folks do as well. Otherwise, make sure that you like, subscribe, notify right on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/cybertradingyou. Otherwise, if you're interested, feel free to go right down to the link on the banner below to sign up for our trial. For all of us there, I'm going to jump into a coaching session coming up pretty shortly. I'll be back on at 3:30. I know that Rich will be on in just a few moments himself. I'll talk to you then. Take care.